Okay, we're about to begin with our next presentation here. It is Ramón who's going to talk about the Scratch programming language. Let's give a round of applause for Ramón.
Thank you very much for having me and for the early applause. Let's see if I can live up to it. So just a small overview of what I'm going to do here or talk about today. And as Alex say, I'm going to talk about Scratch, which is a programming language. I actually tried to make a bit of a trolling title just to see if I can attract some of the very technical people here at the festival, just to see if I can challenge them a bit. And most of the people told me like, oh, I saw the Scratch thing. Isn't it just a programming language for kids? So I'm going to show you a few things. Also going to show you a bit of code in this programming language done by very, very young hackers. And if anybody wants to take the share or take my slides and do whatever they want with them, I actually released them under a copyleft license. So a bit about myself. I have a combination of Danish and Spanish names, surnames, and I have a computer degree from computer science at Copenhagen University. I work at my own company, and I have been used a lot of programming languages, so this is why I have probably some biased opinions with regard of Scratch. I'm a founder of the Meetup for Functional Copenhageners, which is those strange people who like functional programming languages. And recently I become a volunteer of this Coding Pirates movement we have in Denmark, which is actually a movement that tries to teach kids to create technology and not just consume it. So this is actually a talk that we agreed we were going to have like a small hackathon here at BornHack, but we have some issues with getting enough volunteers, and so next year we're going to be here with a lot of volunteers, and we're going to have a lot of kids running around coding and hacking and doing all the nice stuff. So what is actually this Scratch thing? So it's actually defined as a free and open source. You can see the source code. Programming language, visual programming language developed by the MIT Media Lab. So the thing about this programming language compared with other programming languages is this is actually visual. It's not like text that you need to do, for example, in Java, C, and all the other programming languages that we are used to use. So the main time, or the first time I actually saw this programming language was then when I joined like the Coding Pirates. And I think I'm going to show you a small demo, but again, I tried to go into this Coding Pirates thing just to showcase what it is. So it's this non-profit organization that tries to teach kids, but we have a lot of departments in Denmark, and we're really struggling to get volunteers to help those kids to become, for example, like Alex. So I didn't have here the link, but there's a really nice comment from Alex, where is it Peter Toft that wrote like a really nice article how us guys who knows technology should actually spend a bit of time teaching kids or just get them to inspire. And if you read that comment from Alex, you're probably going to join a movement as well. So this is just like personally. Because we have this lack of volunteers, what we do in Copenhagen is that we try to do hackathons. So it's all those kids sign up on our waiting list. We try to get those guys in and just try to talk with them. They can ask us all those questions that nobody can answer them. And it's something that's really popular. Like this is more like when Metallica comes to Copenhagen, like the tickets disappears like in no time at all. So the next one, I'm actually handling that one. So right now I'm getting very angry emails from parents that really want their kids to come to this hackathon. So we're trying to get it up with a few more volunteers, but hey, this is actually what we have to work with. And I took like a picture, and it's both guys and girls who code in Scratch, and they actually find it very funny. So I don't know how many people here have seen Scratch before or know how it is. Can I get some hands? Nice, 3, 4, or 5, 6. Yeah, cool. So I wanted to give like a small demo. So Scratch has this cat called the Scratch cat, which is the first thing like kids see when they come into this online editor. So as I was stating before, you don't need to know any kind of programming paradigms or any kind of functional or object-oriented or whatever it is. You just need to think about blocks of information, and then you just need to combine them like a puzzle or Lego blocks. So here you have like some standard components. So the programming language actually works on events. So here I actually added the event of when I press this green flag, something should happen, right? But as it is right now, nothing happens. If I actually put on this other block, which combines, you can see it how it combines, right? So if I put it here, it clicks. If I put it here, nothing happens. So I combine another block, and if I just take this one, which is turn 50 degrees, the cat will just spin around. So this is the thing, like, what you actually get with this kind of approach is that you have, like, if we take it to programming language terminology, you have like a very strongly type-safe language. Also, kids, they need to put here in a number. They cannot put in A because the system doesn't allow that. So this is actually the approach. And also, this is why we use, some of us use strongly typed programming languages, is because we don't always have the time to review a code, do peer programming with other people, get an architect to actually look into your code. So the more the compiler can help you, the better it is. So there's this built-in compiler that actually helps all the kids that you have at these sessions of Coding Pirates to actually make the games they want to do. Like when I was a kid, I remember having my Legos. I know that if I put like the one with the blocks up with the one with the blocks down, I can actually combine them and make greater stuff. So this is more or less the approach that they're using in Scratch. If I take another block here, now I say it should turn 50 degrees and then move 30. So now instead of just spinning around, it's going to spin around but take a walk. So this is something very, very simple that kids actually understand. So this is like also motion. There's like a few basic concepts that people of very young age actually are able to understand. So now using a bit of Scratch. So this is actually, and I took this insanely funny blog post pictures from this learning curves of different programming languages. So for example, in JavaScript, they have this one that you're actually really productive until you begin to understand or begin to use callbacks. Then it actually turns around, right? Also took Haskell. So you're like, what the heck is going on? What the heck is going on? Then you discover this concept of monads. Oh, and then you need to understand, oh, category theory and stuff like that. And in PHP, it doesn't matter. So I'm sorry if somebody works here with PHP, sorry. So this is actually what they try to abstract, the guys from MIT, and they have a lot of research paper on this stuff. So it's like, build stuff together, like the kids. Just imagine whatever you want. Try to make the cat go around, try to switch the cats, try to do whatever you want to do. Then you just combine all those blocks. And it have in this build mechanism, because it's online, you just press publish, and then you can send the links to all your friends. And this is actually one of the things that's cool about this compared to other languages. Like a kid is going to compile something to a binary, and he's going to send it to his friends, and they need to install some frameworks. That's probably not going to be as fun or as useful for like very young kids. But that will come in time, of course. So, like I remember, like one of the first kids I had, he was just like 6 years old. So when you go into Scratch, you have this guide done by the guys of MIT, and you just sit with that kid, and you just go through that initial guide, and then with a few other helps that you do, he's actually able to do a game in just 3 hours. And I'm going to show actually the game he did. Well, we actually made it in 2. But let's look into that later. So another thing that you also discover, misconception. I usually not work with kids that are that young age. So yeah, whenever you go and talk with programmers, you just say, oh, we speak in English, and you just say a lot of terminology in English. What I discover is that young kids in Denmark don't know English yet. It's coming, but at some point, right? So for me, it's very difficult to explain classes in Java. But for kids in Denmark, like class is just the class where they sit and listen to a teacher. So all this concept is like probably like noise for the kids, which doesn't give sense because they don't have probably the brain to understand whatever we understand. So if we can get some kind of language to just focus on what they want to do, and also in the natural language. So they have this project editor, which actually have about 40 natural languages which we use on a daily basis to talk. And it doesn't matter how young you are, of course you understand the native language of your country, right? So that's also a very really nice introduction to what you want to do, because you understand whatever you're doing. So I don't know how fast I'm going, but the faster I go, I probably are able to show some demo stuff on the games. So this is just the technical part, and this is probably aimed for more the people that are interested in that stuff. So what we see here in the background, this is just a virtual machine that's running, and it's written in JavaScript. And the only thing that this virtual machine does is actually maintain the state of this abstract syntax tree that we are defining here. So we just say we have some blocks, and those blocks, we actually combine them with some events. So we can actually take and copy this one. Oh, just a second. Duplicate the block. And instead of turning 15, we can actually say, oh, sorry, here we can turn 10. And here we can turn 5. This is going to be 2 loops, so it's going to do both events. And now it goes a bit further, right? Compared to before. So because this is actually built in JavaScript, it's actually limited to 1 thread, which I think it's really cool, because we shouldn't do in multi-threaded with kids at that age at least. And cat, come back. So yeah, so this is more or less what it is, and because you have this some kind of warranties that that you just have this abstract syntax to this is just the things that you're allowed, and then you have like this evaluator, and then you have this renderer. So what I find really useful is that I don't get kids that say, oh, I actually get a type error. Oh, and then you have to go and read through code and say, oh, you wrote this in integer, but you actually wrote a text. So all this thing is actually removed from this programming language, which I find it very useful because that way you can help more kids. And this is also, I say, this part of it, but isn't this language just for kids? Because I think I wrote in the abstract that this could probably be used like for normal people, probably not like us who can code, but what about people who actually wants to use this in the other kind of work? I mean, if kids 6 years old can use this kind of paradigm to program stuff, why can older people not do the same? And especially the part with the language, I think I've seen that before, and I think a lot of people like yourself have seen it before. I don't know if you have ever used Microsoft Excel. So when you install the English version, all your code, all your function code is actually on English, but if you install the Danish version, all the code is actually Danish. So there's still this middle layer that ensures that whatever you write in each of the natural languages is going to be translated to something that the machine can run. So on my previous job, we were working with this company called Scribe, and I heard about this Scribe online. I never used it before, but just after I began to go to Coding Pirates, I actually saw this Scribe online thing, and I began to look into, whoa, this looks like very scratchy, right? So I began to look into this paper, and this is actually inspired in Scratch. What they tend to say is that people working at a company, he's been there like 5-10 years, he probably know how to handle his data, right? So what they do is they just provide him an interface so he can actually take data from this source and put it into this target and do all this stuff as the small kid does. This one I found in Programming Humor, which is somebody who probably went nuts. Scratch is very limited, but you have the possibility to create your own data structures. So this person actually thought, why don't we have a 0 index array in Scratch? And this is what he came up with. So if you want to work with arrays, because you're going to do something more complex, and I actually use lists and this thing called MindScratch 2D, which I'm actually working on. So I probably can take his array and just load that into the project and then put in my code. So I probably would not do all this stuff to do an array, but if somebody else has done it and has the time and the free time, that's kind of cool. Scratch is okay, but it's not everything that's shining, right? So we always has like some kind of flaws. This laptop is like, I don't know, has a really big screen, 32 something, and it has this 8 dpi. If somebody else work with Linux and have more or less the same screen setup, you will actually know that that's actually very problematic with a lot of programs, right? So the guys from MIT decided they want to do some Flash stuff, which actually relates on this Adobe Air component. And so this is actually Scratch, the client that's actually available now with all the languages. And why the heck did I put it in Greek? Well, I put it in Aragonese, I understand that one. So the thing is, when I have like my DPI screen there, I cannot minus or plus. So I like a text from me is just like 1 millimeter. I cannot see anything there, which I find a bit like annoying because I help the kids with the computers that we have at the place, but I cannot come home and then say, oh, I want to implement this because it's too small, and I cannot even zoom it, so I have that limitation. The guys from MIT have understood that Flash is dead fish, and they actually are rewriting it to support the new HTML interface. So this is the new client, and this is the old client. I can finally begin to work with Scratch and help the kids even more, right? So this is actually kind of cool from my point of view. The only thing that is bad from my purpose is that I want to put it in Danish. So right now they only have it translated in Spanish and French. So we still need that part. Also, if we go back, the complexity with this application is that it's verbose, so it's image. And sometimes if you make small games, it's very easy to see what's happening, or because it's just something that you can focus on. But when you begin to put a lot of blocks inside, this can actually be very, very verbose, and it's very difficult to debug because you don't know which kind of event it's actually running. And it's very much like JavaScript. So if you have this, actually have this global state, which you actually update with this eval function, which is under the hood, and all the events you have around can do it. So sometimes you need to go around and actually try to find the event that does this. And already here you can see complexity. This is not too complex, but it can be much more than this if you go into some really nice done games. Also, the main point of Scratch is that they want you to create some kind of art. So it's very limited to games. It's very easy to kids just to create the games. And what we discover, like at the hackathon at Video, which was the picture I had there, is like kids will be kids, girls will be girls, and guys will be guys. So we put 2 tables where they had this thing called Scratch, and there was 8 girls running to one table together and 8 guys running to the other table together. So what we found out is that the guys actually want to do shooting games, they want to do fighting games, while the girls wanted to do storylines, like for example Sims. So that's perfectly okay, right? But the thing is, like the Scratch itself is not like this enterprise tool that I showed you before, where you can actually think, oh, this is a data structure, data interface, and I want to communicate and all this stuff. So I think like the creativity is very limited just to those 2 concepts. But that's probably also the reason they did it. But normally with programming languages is that you have this Turing completeness. So you can probably do whatever you want, and it's just like the time that's going to be your limit. Another thing that I find really annoying is that there's no built-in revision control or like history of what you have done. So sometimes you sit with a kid and they're actually doing stuff, and they delete it and then they save. So it's just like they never created what they did before, and it was working. So for me to guess what 7 children have done before, it's very difficult for my brain to do that. So if the guys from Scratch just built in like a set of traces that, oh, I can just go 2 back, and that's what I did, and then I can go back to what you did, just like branch, just like we have in Git, right? So I think that's something that they should be working on, or us should be working on it. And it's an open source project, so more code and less words, as somebody very, very clever said sometime. Also, with this Minecraft 2D game I tried to create, we were going because kids love Minecraft. That's a thing. So you always need to try to get the attention. So we allow kids to code and build stuff with Minecraft. And this is something also I forgot to talk about, is that even though we call Coding Pirates, it's just not about code. So it's about creating content with technology. So I already spoke with people from Labitat with regard of those nice badges. So could we probably borrow 1 or 2 to probably the departments from Bornholm or the one I work with, so we can actually show kids with a small screen what you can do. So it's just a way to inspire kids. And the thing is, where I am, we have a few 3D printers, but we actually try to make the kids understand what's in the computer and then how it goes out to physical. So we make them we actually tell them to make something in Minecraft, and then inside Minecraft we have some plugin that actually allows them to press a button, and that will be converted into a vector graph, which we can actually print on a 3D printer. So kids actually can see, oh, whatever we do here can actually go out from the screen and into the real world. So in order to catch like the attention of the kids, we actually aim for topics that they like. So if they hear Minecraft, oh, are you doing Minecraft from scratch? That sounds nice. Yeah, I probably want to help you. So we actually thought we can do like infinite amount of blocks, but the limit of clones of blocks is like 300. So it's just like a small grid in the screen. So it was just like here. And then it's the hacker thing, right? So whenever the technology gives you like a limitation, of course we're going to find a way to do it. So we found out that we just need to create more sprites, and each sprite has 300. So we just try to work around that way. Like I said before, is that sometimes when you're like looking into code here and you're just going up and down, going up and down, going up and down, and you cannot see the bug, sometimes you have to do this as well. And kids can be a bit of like, they try to tease you as well, right? So what they do is they just place a piece of code like here. So when you do this, you're just like going up and down, and you're not able to see like the bug. And then you see at some point, oh, it's actually there. So what's built into this system is that you can actually format, I think here. Oh, it's in the bold one. Still not in the new one. No. Doesn't work at the way here. Yeah. So the point is like, always trying to clean up your code, and it's the same with our code bases, right? If it's just like shit, you're going to have a really bad time in order to actually find the bugs and actually expand your applications. So as big and grown up as I am, I didn't know that. So one of the girls come to me and say, no, you have to do like this, this, this. And I actually got schooled by a little girl. So this is actually some of the nice thing that I discover is that we teach them stuff, but they teach us stuff as well. So you have always to come with this open mentality. And if anybody ever worked with kids, sometimes they can be harsh because they don't have any filter and they say the stuff like it is. And it goes straight to the heart sometimes. Something that I also discover is that the thing with blogs and this is it could become a bit like, I've seen it with a bit older kids that it's just like, it's so difficult to do Scratch. So what you need to do is that this is like, for me, is like a way to come into programming. So what we need to do is that, so we can go from Scratch, and then there's something called Stencil, which I didn't know until like 2 weeks ago, and I went into a Coding Pirate workshop. So it's more or less like, for me, it's more or less like Scratch on steroids. It has a built-in physics engine, and you can actually make easily 2D games. So this is something that you can actually take the kids from Scratch to this one. And the good thing about this one is, Wow, good, Java, good. Yeah. The good thing about this is actually you have the possibility to hook up events, and you can actually add Java snippets. So we're still working with blocks, but now we begin to slowly show them how we can write code with real text. And of course, this gives sense to kids that are a bit older that actually know how to speak English, because when you write this stuff, you have to understand what get method is and events and all this stuff in Java. So it's a really nice transition. And in Denmark, we have this company called Unity. I think most of you have heard about it. And that could also, that's actually the next step after probably Stencil, or at the same time as Stencil. So now to the fun part. And sadly, we don't have this revision control or history. So the kids actually work on their profiles, and they do the stuff they want to do. So we just help them every week. So I thought this game was working, but it's not working anymore. But I think I will still show you what's going on in this game. So this is actually the kid that never touched Scratch before, and we went through the guide. So he just wanted to make a game where a cat, or the Scratch cat, needed to drink some milk, but it needed to run away from the dog. So you will say that that's pretty complex, right? So the thing here, if I can see, we just have these 3 sprites, and it's, can I go down here? No. So here we have a cat as an actor. We have a glass of milk, which is just a square, a white square with a black around, and this is the size. And then we have this dog. So if we can see in the cat just have the vents to move, which is right arrow to go right, left arrow to go down, up and down arrows. And then we have some basic thing that it says, if it gets bite by the dog, it should make a sound, say meow, and of course it's going to lose a life. And cats have 9 lives initially, so whenever it gets bitten, it can get bitten 8 times, right? So this is probably the easiest part, right? This is what we all think about, but how you're going to code artificial intelligence into this game, right? And it's something that the kid needs to be able to do. So I think what we got up to is that, if I can see it here. Yeah, so we have all these constructs. We also have randomity and all that possibilities to do this. So what we do with the dog, and it's a bit sad that you cannot see it, but what the dog tries to do, it runs around. So we decided it runs to the center, and then it runs to one of the corners, because we tried to build something else that it just go after the cat. And if you make the artificial intelligence too intelligent, it's always going to bite the cat. So it's not fun, the game. If you make it too stupid, it's never going to bite the cat. So what we did is that we did it randomly. It just goes around, and at some point it sprints. So you actually get hit by this by the dog, and it actually bites you. So this is something that he did in 2 hours. In 2 hours again, we actually perfectionated. So if I go back to the, can we see here full screen? See project page. So we can see here what he wrote probably. For the Danish people, we need to do kid drinks milk. So that was the first thing that we actually noted what we forgot to do. So the kid needs to drink the milk. The cat needs to make a sound when it gets bitten. The cat lives and the movement of the dog. So we did it in two sessions. Another one done by one of the kids is, and I find this kind of funny because, and this also doesn't work because they try things out, and then when I want to showcase stuff, it doesn't work. But I find it kind of funny because it's like football in Europe is football, right? While football in the States is actually American football. So he just put like, I don't know, you can see it here, is actually American football player being the goalkeeper, playing football in Europe. So what we do is we have this central arcade machine where we actually started up in Maine sometimes, but we also started up in this Scratch game thing. So what they can do is we put in the game there, and they can actually challenge the other kids or the parents to play the games. So he was really proud of in this game. He did it almost by himself. And when the cat scores, it gets a goal, and when the goalkeeper gets it, it just kicks the ball back. So he was all proud that he was able to score 10 goals before like the goalkeeper won. And then another kid comes and say, yeah, but I score like 2,000 goals. And everybody's like, what the heck? So what that other kid found around was that if you score the goal and you just press up, the ball is still going to score, and the goalkeeper cannot get it. So actually kids, and this is like the hacker mentality, right? Even though you think you're doing stuff correctly, right? Somebody's going to find a hole in the cheese, and he's going to exploit it, right? So small hackers, and that's why I say young hackers. This is actually probably one of the best games we have, and you can already see like there's people that are going to be like us, and there's people that are probably not going to be like us, but they're still going to work in IT. So this kid, he's actually very, okay, so Scratch is not really useful when I do this saving. Oh, so I see people call things 1.0, but when I want to try to do things, I actually save a new version called 1.02. So this kid already understands what we're doing, and I think he goes in the 3rd grade. So some kids will do this, but I still think like Scratch needs to provide this kind of mechanism or tooling for all kids, not just for the ones that already know how to do this. And I think we can play this one. This is actually kind of cool. Oh no, this is the music one. This one. So WASD to move the guy on the, what is for you, left, and the arrow keys on the other side to move the guy on the right. So what he did was that because of that arcade machine we can play against each other. So you need to, when I press down, I actually throw the ball at each other. So it's some kind of a dodge ball thing. So he jumps and he actually throws the ball. Oh, P2 wins. Cool. So again, like very basic stuff that those kids are actually able to do themselves. And the guy who actually did this game, he actually thinks that Scratch is now too easy for him, so he wanted to take to the next steps. And this is what, like, if you read like the comment from Alex, this is where we need to help them go to the next steps on this ladder. The next game I want to show, and this is pure evil, because this is actually impossible to play, but hey, let me see. So, and you can see, it's not skill. The keyboard is too slow. So it's sometimes you're lucky enough to get all the music notes, right? And when I made like this girl, why don't we make the keyboard faster so we can actually get like all the music notes based on skill? And she's just like, nah. So so kids will be kids, right? What you gonna do? So. And this is actually she goes to clarinet and she's singing like it's called right chore. So she's really into music. So that's why she want to do a music game, and she draw like the keyboard, she draw like the notes. So this is actually so cool that they have this kind of domain in their head, and they just want to put it into a small game or something else. So just to summarize up, one of the strong things I find with Scratch is that we're actually building the blocks or building this application based on composition instead of focusing on syntax and paradigm like we do in all the programming languages that we more or less use on a daily basis, right? It's very easy to get started. Like this kid, 6 years old, already in two sessions he was able to do something really, really cool with the cat and the dog and the milk. The really strong side with Scratch compared to everything else is the translation to so many languages. And this is actually done by the community, and it's done by a huge community. So this is why when we ask for volunteers, we probably, it's not only people who can code, we actually ask for people who can help. So if you're really good at translating, if you know two kind of languages, or say, I know Danish and Swedish, and sometimes when you see the translation from Danish to Swedish, it's not really good done because somebody just put it through Google Translate. So if you think you can do probably a better translation or a translation to another language, then try to help out with that part. That's as valid what can you say, as valid as somebody who's probably going to code something under the hood. Scratch blocks is just, for the technical part, is just a combination of blocks, which is this abstract syntax tree, which maintains the states, and then based on this virtual machine, it just decides whenever it evaluates and how it renders out. It's not a waste of time learning Scratch, and if you have kids, sit with your kid, try to learn with your kid this programming language, because probably you can work of one of this corporation or jobs where you actually have to use this tool called Scribe Online. So it's not a waste of time for yourself. Again, not everything is perfect, right? So Scratch have flaws as well, and some can be fixed and some cannot be fixed, because that shows how it is. And finally, there's a couple of few of us who has like this T-shirt with Coding Pirates, and so if you want to hear more about this movement, or just get a beer with us and listen more anecdotes, which I cannot say because we're getting recorded, just come down to the bar and we can speak about it. Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
We have time for a couple of questions. We'll start with here.
Yeah, hi Ramón, thank you.
Hello.
I was wondering about the player, the HTML5 player. I was just looking for it online. I also recall that there is like a native native program that you can install too. So you don't even have to use the browser.
So the point is like the offline client, I don't even want to talk about it because it's just like the Adobe Air thing running locally. So I already have problems running it on the browser. Just imagine running that on a Linux.
Oh.
So the thing is like it's a really nice thing that they're actually moving it up to HTML5, and I have the link on the slide. So when they go up, you can actually take it.
Maybe you have some free time later.
Sure.
Of course, meet up and translate the HTML5 client to Danish.
Oh, you want to do it?
If I can get some help, yeah.
Sure. We'll ask around, yeah.
I also have a question for Alex, if that's okay. Yes. So that comment sounded really like it was something inspiring. Do you mind sharing it? Can you recall it?
Yeah, so the comment that he was referring to was this blog post about what kids, how we engage young hackers in communities. And it was a personal anecdote for when I was in 8th grade, we have this thing where you have to go to a company and try working with something. And I got into a really nice IT company, like the Danish research network system, UniC back then. And I got some really fun project, was trying to compile kernel modules and all kinds of stuff with all these IT people who helped me out with it. And I think that moment really settled what I wanted to do. And that's sort of what the comment is about. Yeah.
So I think on the official BornHack, we can probably just tag it there. So if any other people also want to see that comment, it is in Danish. So I think Google Translate can help you if you want to read it in your native language.
I don't even know which article it was.
I have it. Don't worry. Yeah. I read it every night.
Scary.
And I know where you live.
There's just so many things you can say about Scratch and this thing about getting children to work with this. I've been doing Scratch with my daughter a bit. We made this very cool thing about 2 sprites where a horse was running around, and whenever it hit the cat, it said meow, and the horse ran away again. It was very cool, and it was really a catchy thing for her to do. You are describing the web client, and there was, yes, we have an offline client for this also. The one that I got working is the ancient version.
Yeah.
But I've been looking into it, and it seems that you can hook up Scratch to the GPIO ports in a Raspberry Pi. And yes,
you can probably, yeah, sure.
And the thing is that just like you have when you have pictures moving and these very graphical games, kids are mentally not prepared to work with abstract things until they are, I don't know, 12, 15. No mind. So this thing about making something where what they do has clear visual response, so they can see if it works or not.
Yep.
And yes, graphics is very good for that, but making a small robot run around following a circle, which would require 2 I/O ports and two output ports and 1 input port or something like that, it would be really doable also.
Yeah.
So using this for making very small robots, that's actually on my to-do list.
So people already thought about that, and they already made a business. It's called mbots. So mbots, you just combine these hardware components, and then you program them either with your laptop, and you have Scratch. So you just say this mbot needs to go this fast for so many steps or so many rotation. So like, it's a really good point you have. And the thing is, like, we need more commercial products to actually be able to show this to kids, because also this is the thing with the 3D printer. We shouldn't be just living in this world, like electronic world. We should actually combine both worlds together, like the guys from Labitat does.
Yeah, I think that next year when you come back and we do a Scratch session for kids,
Yep.
we should get the Labitat guys to make some solder 2 things together, put it on the I/O ports, and let's see if we can make a windmill or whatever.
I already put in a ticket or 2 to get a few more of those batches, so I can take it back to the kids, so we can play with those. So.
I have yet another question.
Sure.
You are very focused on the language thing, and when I look at it, I see that you need to teach the kid 15 words in English. Isn't that just way doable, and let's not discuss that?
I was actually trying to teach kids what modulus is, and it was just like, because when you see kids, it was just like they were making if statements, so if 1, if 2, if 3, if 4, if 5, and then they were doing this, and I was just like, but isn't that just modulus? And the kid would just like say, what are you talking about? So it's not just the language itself, it's also like logic and mathematical fundamentals they don't have yet. So you don't know if it's just, I translate modulus to something in Danish and they understand it. Probably not. So
this thing about a while loop, it doesn't matter if it's called a while loop in whatever language it is. It's just this clip-on thing that does this.
So
and
while
they will learn that very, very fast. So, yeah.
So this is just forever. It gives sense. And if we put it in Danish, what the heck is that? Or in Spanish, I can say what it is. Just a second. I'll set here, control. What? Oh yeah. I can't find it. Oh, this is not Spanish. I don't know. Yeah, but it's just like the notions, like somebody who actually used a lot of time, and probably as Benjamin is going to do, to port this to Danish, he's actually going to put like a wording that actually gives sense for the kids, right? Yep.
Cool. Do we have other questions? None? Then let's give a round of applause for Ramón.
Thank you.